All right. Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Welcome to Poly Chat, a part of the Gay Talk Interactive podcast channel. On this show, we like to provide unique and sometimes conflicting views on polyamory as it is presented and or distributed by gay men. I am your host and moderator, Byron Anthos, registered behavioral therapist, and currently working towards my degree on marriage and family counseling. And let me introduce you to the rest of our panel. First, we have the creator and operator of PolyChat, moderator of Poly Community Platforms on Facebook. From New York, we have Oleg.
Hi everyone, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much, Anthony. Welcome everybody. Let's talk, let's talk, let's talk.
All right. Up next, we have Sergio, a BIPOC community organizer and activist from San Francisco / Guatemala, board member of Onyx Northwest, a club for gay men of color. Welcome, Sergio.
Hello, everyone.
And last, we have Dr. Justin Terry Smith, who changed his title in the middle of the last conversation and thought we didn't notice. He is an award-winning actor and producer, life coach, therapist, has a doctorate in public health, author, father of two, and founding mother of Onyx Mid-Atlantic and hopefully the Onyx New Mexico chapter someday soon. Welcome, Dr. Justin Terry-Smith.
Thank you. It's very nice to be here. I appreciate the intro.
Oh, God. So, guys, on this episode, we just had a great chat with the polyamorous matchmaker from Chicago, Victoria Joseph. You can find her on Instagram at ENM Matchmaker. And now we're going to do some Q&A amongst ourselves and with our guests. So, would anybody like to lead us off before we get into some already pre-sent questions? Anybody have any questions about anything under the sun? Well, then let's actually give them the first round. So, the first question we have is from Vic from Fort Lauderdale. Thank you for joining us, Vic. The question that we got from you is it a poly relationship if I have several close boyfriends but live by myself? First, let's hear a little bit from Vic. So, Vic, what brought you here and what puts this question on your mind?
I was just curious about polyamory. I'd never really given it any thought till I had seen Oleg on Facebook, and he and I had chatted back and forth a bit.
He is the catalyst for a lot of people, yes.
Yeah, and I live in kind of a unique community. I live in the bubble of Fort Lauderdale, which is mostly gay. So I'd listened in to the last chat that we had with Victoria, and it sounded like there were the small pockets in New York and Chicago of gays, and everybody else is straight, which is mostly true for most communities. But in our community, the people that I hang out with are mostly straight, and mostly gay, and there are a few straights. So finding people who have similar interests in terms of being gay is very easy for me because that's the people I hang out with already.
Mm-hmm.
So that sets me apart a little bit and has a contrast with everyone else. And I just was curious because polyamory, or at least multiple relationships, are incredibly common in our community. Monogamy is something that's very rare. So that's sort of the perspective that I approach the group from.
Okay, well, Dr. Justin Terry-Smith has would like to weigh in on your question. So, Doctor,
You always say the hyphen. You don't need to say the hyphen. Just say
you put the hyphen in it. I'm not going to ignore it.
Jeez, every single time. Okay. So Vic, I just want to make sure I clarify your question, right? So you're saying you live alone, but let's say you have 5 boyfriends who live outside of your home. Is that correct?
I have 2, but yes, that's the question.
2. Okay.
And it helped. The last meeting really helped because it helped define the difference between swingers and emotional relationships and all. I think the last meeting we had really helped clarify, I think, formulating an answer to that question.
Okay. Okay, nice. I'm glad it helped. So in my definition, I mean, this is just from my perspective. I have 5. So it's and 2 of them don't live with me. Well, actually, 3 of them as of right now don't live with me. And the first one of them is going to actually live with me and my other partner. So the answer to your question in short, for me, yes, that does mean that you're kind of you're doing polyamory. That's the best I can actually do it right now or say it. But yeah, so you're being polyamorous just because they don't live with you at the moment doesn't mean that you're not being polyamorous, right?
You heard it here first, folks. Polyamory is now a verb. It's what you do.
It's from a doctor too, so like really believe it. But yeah, so I mean you are experiencing or you are what is the word I'm looking for? Geez, Anthony, help me.
Yes, I believe your relationship would be considered a polyamorous relationship.
Thank you. I think that you are a polyamorous person if you do have two boyfriends and it doesn't matter if they live with you or not.
Rick, are those guys they know about each other? Like they
Yes,
know?
definitely.
Okay,
Yes, we go to activities in the same circles where all three of us will be there, but
okay.
they aren't as much partnered as I am with each one individually.
Are they
So it's kind
friends
of a
with each
V.
other?
Yeah, they're friends with each other, but not as close as I am with each one.
Beautiful. And how long you been in this uh, V situation?
I would say probably coming on a year.
Beautiful. Okay. And how do you feel so far?
Oh, I love it. I was 21 years in a monogamous relationship
Hmm.
without any whoopee at all going on. And when COVID came and I just moved out and he went on with another partner. I have really enjoyed Fort Lauderdale and the freedom that it has offered me and the ability to experience multiple relationships with multiple people. And I would not go back to monogamy.
And is this a new experience to you? And how did you jump so quickly from monogamy to essentially polyamory?
That's a tough question to answer. It's what just the it took my partners. You asked how long have I been with them? I would say about a year, but I started about 2 years ago. So it started with. It takes time. You have to, as the last conversation said, you have to come up to speed. And as I came up to speed, and I recognized and identified within the community that non-monogamous relationships were the norm, and realizing that that was an option for me, I was able to slowly start to, as the last person said, date different people until I
Hmm.
found people that I had common interest with, and those are the people that I have developed emotional relationships with and sexual relationships with. I mean, I have people that we all go out and
Giggity.
just have the swinger relationships with. I consider polyamory to be emotional and deeper than just a swinger relationship. That's kind of how I define it.
And is there anything you're looking for, like to transform your relationship to add more people, or to any, or you're good for now? Just curious.
I wouldn't mind adding more people, but as Dr. Dash says, I think five is too many. I think I would have a hard time managing that. I can manage
Mm-hmm.
two. I think three is possible. I think anything more than that, and I had to say that, Doctor. I had to throw that in. To manage more than three, I think would be more than I would be emotionally ready to do at this point.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
But that's really good that you actually know that about yourself, because a lot of people that are poly don't know where their bandwidth is. Like, right? So like a lot of us have a bandwidth where I'm like, I have four partners and there's five of us together soon. I should have clarified that. I thought I said, I can only do two more partners. Like I was like, I can only do, and then this one came as a couple. So I was like, oh, hmm. Okay, I think I can do this. But a lot of people don't have that bandwidth and they end up, a lot of the relationships suffer because they don't realize they don't have the bandwidth to take on more partners at that moment.
Right. I want to be able to spend time with each person and maintain that emotional bond. And I need time to do that. And I need time to be myself also. So I've managed two. I think I could manage maybe one more, but that's it. I think I would have a hard time managing more than that and reaching the goals of having the depth of emotional relationship that I want to have.
I love that last part.
I think that part that you mentioned, there was a couple of things there. The last that you mentioned, that I think is super important is when you mentioned that you want to have time to yourself. And earlier today, it was also mentioned as one of the criteria that Victoria was doing within her speed dating firm, which was making sure that people know that they don't do everything together; they can do things on their own, right? And I have found definitely in my relationships that spending that time on my own is crucial to having a healthy relationship with my partners. It gives me time to process my own thoughts. It gives me process time to focus on myself rather than always wanting to make sure that my partners are taken care of. It really I find a lot. I have learned to find a lot of benefit and a lot of growth in the solitude that I have when I do have that. Again, that may not be for everybody, right? But recognizing that you want that little bit of a space that will allow you to process the conversations that you have, whether they're positive, whether it's an argument, whether it's a discussion, whether you're trying to come up with ways to, focus on, growing your relationship with somebody or how to tackle conflict resolution, right? You need that time to yourself to be able to kind of learn, create that verbiage, and be able to come back to your relationship a little bit refreshed. So I love that you said that too.
Thank you.
Dr.
Yeah,
Justin.
I actually,
Dr. Dash, go ahead.
Dr. Dash, thank you. Get it right. So
I'll say the whole thing.
I also think that that was a good point that you made. I actually was going to say that right after you said it, but Sergio kind of came in and said it for me. I just came back from a trip for Denver. I just to call it a mini vacation. So I take like a weekend away from my partners, and I say I'm going to Denver, or I'm going to Austin, or I going to San Francisco. And I meet up with friends and I have a good time, but I also realize, of course, that is me recharging my batteries. Like that is me having to spend time with myself, know myself, and I love that. And it's like, okay, so you hit the nail on the head when you said that. Exactly.
Yeah, and outside of the discussion of polyamory, I think it has a little bit to do with how introverted and extroverted everyone is. I lean more towards the introverted, so I need that recharge time. An extroverted person probably to a lesser extent.
Yeah, and I think that it was particularly great the way you said that you kind of acknowledged like what your relationship goals would be, because that was one thing that I think we had talked about in past conversations. When people say that, I want to try polyamory and they're like, okay, but why? And then they're like, well, I just think it'd be interesting to be in a relationship with other people. Okay, what does a relationship with you look like? Like, that's the question. Like, what's the goal for you? It could be a short-term goal or a long-term goal. But I think even like Victoria says, it's basically just about your intentions. Like, what are your intentions going into this? Is it, in line with, the other people that are in your life, the other people that are in community? Like, how reasonable is it? So, I think it is very important to, like they said, to acknowledge your own bandwidth, but to also know what is it that you are, precisely looking to fill.
Because I kind of I've formulated that. I agree with you. I have formulated an answer to that question. So yes, I think it's important to understand what the goals are. I had specific goals.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for your question. Thank you for sharing your story. I think it's wonderful. I love Fort Lauderdale. You definitely have a different vibe there, and I think it's a beautiful place for polyamory. Yeah, people nice there for sure. Thank you. All right, guys, we have Marvin with us from West Hollywood. Hello. Yes, we got so many questions from you.
So the first one that we got from you says, what is the easiest way for single men to find couples who are interested in dating a third? It's fairly easy to find couples who just want to hook up, but not couples who actually want to date as well. It's like finding a needle in a haystack.
So, I mean, I find that a lot of people ask me that question, especially if they're looking to be the third in a couple that's already established as a couple. A lot of times you'll find, especially on Facebook discussion groups, I mean, you'll find a lot for them, but of course, finding one in your area is probably really hard depending on where you live. So, I mean, I always do like a search, like, okay, polyamorous, like this state, right? Or like in a search on Facebook, or to look for a discussion group or some sort. And then also there's other websites as well that are dedicated to finding other polyamorous people where you live. I mean, I'm not sure you're in West Hollywood, right?
Yeah, I didn't know there were websites dedicated to that. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, West Hollywood, you'll probably find a lot of traction and finding polyamorous couples that are wanting to have a third with them.
So let me ask you this real quick, Marvin. So what challenges do you think you have faced that makes you think that made you ask, what is the easiest ways? Like, what challenges do you think that you've come across? I mean, is it really just most want to hook up?
Right. So like the places I think most gays now unfortunately know how to like find others and date is the apps now. Like it's becoming less and less common to find people at bars and whatnot, other events, whatnot. So on the apps, you'll find people who are couples looking for a third, but it's generally what the app is intended for, which is just to hook up. And if something happens beyond that, well, it's because, you know, by coincidence, by accident, something develops into something else. But to go into something with the intention of wanting to date a couple, which I've explored before and I really enjoyed, that's a little harder to find. I did that in New York. It was great. I'd love to find that here in California, but I don't know what my options are. I don't know how to find that.
So one thing that I like to advocate for is the apps, because I actually, met my husband 12 years ago on the apps. And so I'd say that like the apps are really just designed as a connecting platform. The intentions behind them tend to be done by the people. So I think that like when people say, is Grindr overrated? Is Grindr underrated? I think it gets appropriately rated depending on the intention behind it. I think that it does tend to streamline a lot of the time and energy that people put into actual physical dating. And I think that's what has kind of hurt possibly the dating culture. Like Victoria said, not everybody knows how to flirt, not everybody knows how to date. People need coaching. And it's because we do kind of miss out on that face-to-face interaction and that chemistry building. But at the same time, we do kind of save time and money. So it really goes into what you value more than anything. Do you want to invest more time and money into, physical social dating? Do you want to, face more rejection just by having it streamlined? Because dollars to donuts, when you go on the app, you do get more rejections than you do success. And that's just because it's easier, it's plentiful, and it just saves you that extra time. But it also does kind of feel like it does wear thin, probably because it is so many. But you could probably get like 20 rejections in a day on an app as opposed to 20 bad dates over 6 months.
I also do want to say that times have changed a lot to where it's kind of structured. Dating structure has definitely changed. I met my husband at a bar, right? When 19 years ago, there was no app, there was nothing, right? So I met him at a bar. But of course, we met our boyfriend on Scruff. And then we met our other two boyfriends. Wait, shit. Oh, on Grindr and Adam Fradum. So like, sorry, I could not remember. So like a lot of times, I mean, as a dating coach sometimes, or relationships coach, excuse me, I like to ask people when they are on an app, right? I'm not advocating for apps, but I'm not also, downgrading them either. But like the thing is, when they're on the app, what does their profile look like? That is the one question I ask them every single time. So, okay, of course you have this, 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 and this. Okay. I kind of help them to create a profile that would probably scream to someone, hey, you're polyamorous and I am too, or hey, you're a third looking for a couple in a serious polyamorous relationship and this is what I'm looking for. And then so they're like, oh, okay. And they usually get more bites when to say what you're looking for, usually you get more bites. And a lot of times I have friends of mine that are like, I've been single for 5 years and, nobody on this app is, hitting me up. I'm like, or nobody's hitting me up for a serious relationship. I'm like, yeah, because you have looking for hookups on your app. So they're gonna look for hookups. They're not thinking that you want something serious. And also there on those dating apps, there are a lot of searches that you can do as well. Like you can say, okay, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for this. I want to, gosh, I can't remember which app it is, but it actually says polyamorous. I think it's Scruff. And so a lot of times like when you go on the apps, they do have the search where you can search for a polyamorous person or a polyamorous couple. You can
It's Scruff and Grindr now, actually.
Okay.
Well, I have a question. I actually kind of want to join Marvin on this question because based on what I know about polyamory and throuples and the discussions that we had in the last year or more here on platform and Facebook and everywhere and even in person, I was actually start to believe that it's almost impossible to find a couple who's it's for me as a single person, it's almost impossible to find a couple that I can join. Through the conversations that we usually have here, I established, I believe, that I have to create my throuple or my polycule from scratch, like to find first person and second person and then more. Is that true or not? I'm kind of trying to join Marvin on his question, but that wasn't his question for sure.
No, but I relate to what you're saying. Oleg. It's exactly what I'm thinking.
So similar, right? Okay, cool.
Yeah,
so we're kind of on the same page on here. Okay. Yeah, but Sergio, you can go ahead and
Oh my
And
gosh, so many things I want to say. First and foremost, Marvin. Hi, Marvin.
Hello.
Thank you for your
do you know each
question.
other?
I wanna speak to like a couple of things that Oleg and Dr. Dash were saying a little bit ago. But I have a question, just a clarification question. Is there a reason? Is your preference just for dating a couple versus dating a person first, or something like that? Like, or is that just what you're looking for in that particular place?
That's a great question. So I think that the reason why I'm gravitating more toward the couple is because I have less experience with polyamory. So for me, that feels like a safer way to explore it. I don't know. I think that's kind of, it's also been my experience, like where I've enjoyed like being like hanging out with couples and dating couples. Um, it feels like you'd be very, I don't know, amateur for me, particularly to start with somebody and then say, hey, you want to have a third join us eventually? Like, I just, I don't know. It doesn't speak to me
Well, I
as
think that,
quickly.
I think that there's a certain level of awareness that you have to have of kind of where you're at and where your community is at, right? I want to acknowledge that despite you being in West Hollywood and LA with tons of beautiful gay men everywhere, it can be an extremely, extremely hard place to find connection a lot of the times. There's a number of reasons for it. The
For sure.
nature of the, entertainment business, the nature of LA, like San Francisco, where I'm at, being a very transitory city, the focus of there being a lot of the idea that there's a lot of focus on your personal image. So my one of my partners, Kirk, he lives down in LA. He's an LA boy raised up in Riverside. He came to San Francisco, and I actually didn't start dating him until he moved back to LA. And he moved back to LA about 3 years ago. And coming from a place in San Francisco where a lot of people are much more authentic many times, or have the freedom to be more um, authentic around their sexuality based on the community, right? Not everybody can do that in LA based on positions or work they may have. And it was hell for the first 2 years. I mean, my partner would call me crying. I mean, there would people that when he would speak to just by saying polyamorous would curse him out, and gay men within the community, right? Telling him that he was wrong for doing this and everything. It took a while for him to be able to do that. And I think that some of the steps that played into that very well, one of the things that Justin, for example, mentioned is I sat down with him and say, okay, well, let's think about how we can tackle this, right? Here is a group of friends that I have in LA that I think we might be able to connect with to allow him to start creating a community, not even necessarily a poly community, but a community of people that have a little bit more of understanding. We reworked his apps. On his apps, we went with like kind of what Justin and Anthony were talking about, and just being very explicit about what we were talking about, what he was looking for, right? And that way, weeding out all the potential people that like might come in just to create a negative effect when he's reaching out, right? Instead of having an app that was kind of here or there, and having somebody come in and finding out he's poly, and then maybe like making him feel bad for that. Now his apps has everything out there, right? So the people that do talk to you are coming in with an understanding of having a certain level of comprehension about where you're at in your life and what you're looking for. The third thing that has worked really well for me in my relationships, the relationships that I have currently, is that aside from apps, is really engaging in, for myself, community engagement, community work. I do a lot of volunteering. I do a lot of events here in San Francisco around BIPOC people, sexual positivity education, and all that kind of stuff. And that what allowed me to do is start creating a little bit of a network of people who maybe this is not who I'm attracted to immediately, but there's a network of people that have the knowledge around polyamory, around being in ethical non-monogamous relationships that might be able to create a sense of community for you to be able to start looking for that, right? Or to be able to find that a little bit more. And I guess what I really want to make sure, what I want you to get away is not to dismay. It's tough. It's tough in LA. LA is a tough place to date. There are places that are tough because there isn't a lot of people. LA, much like San Francisco, can be very tough because there's a lot of people. So, a lot of the times that people aren't at the same level. So you kind of wanting to look for a relationship or something like that. What we're looking for is hooking up or doing other kinds of things. And I think the third thing that I would tell you also is to be a little bit, also be aware of, polyamory is, there are different versions of it. But when you're looking to date a couple, you also have to realize that there's going to be their own set of difficulties, their own set of nicheness there, right? To be able to come into that kind of situation. I have found a lot of the times that, especially in my journey at least, that in learning about polyamory, I have done better working with my partners on a one-on-one kind of like learning and growth experience, rather than coming in and thinking that necessarily two people might have all the knowledge. I can tell you that by you being on this call, you probably have a lot more knowledge than, a lot of couples that I know with regard to it that are just, testing it out, and the apps creating a sense of community engagement, really being aware of what I'm looking for and really kind of seeing if I'm at that place. And the third thing is, I will say it, Anthony is a proposer of the apps. I'm a proposer of education, and informing yourself, learning, coming to a seminar, reading a book, learning a lot about that, because you would be amazed, as somebody who's identifying as polyamorous, I believe as you are, the amount of power and actually knowledge that you do have while you're single, or that you gain from being single, that you may not realize that you may have already in you to contribute to a relationship. And that's a little bit about giving ourselves a little bit of credit, right? Like you mentioned, in New York, you were already in a dynamic where you were with, a couple. You learned a lot more from that. And I can tell you that dating a couple, and I mean, Justin will tell you the same, is very different than dating a solo, right? But there are learnings that you can take from that into dating somebody by yourself, that already gives you a lot of background and a lot of foundation to stand on, to be able to try that out. I want to challenge you not to be afraid of dating that one person just because you feel inexperienced. On the contrary, when I think about intimacy in my relationships, hanging out is number one. But education and experience are two forms of intimacy when you're with a partner, when you're dating somebody, that really make you grow. Learning something together, reading a book together, or experiencing something together, right? Those are two forms of intimacy in relationships that we don't necessarily always talk about, that I think that can be very unique to when you're dating another person. So long-winded, keep that in mind. I'll hand it over to Anthony.
Thank you. That's awesome. Yeah, appreciate it.
So one of the things that we had mentioned with Vic was actually being not necessarily forthright, because before you can be forthright, you have to be really self-aware about what your intentions are. So to really kind of see, like, not just that you're drawn to another couple, but like what are your intentions with a couple? Like, what does a relationship with you look like? What do you imagine a relationship with a couple looks like? In past conversations, I'll always ask people, whenever I go after the couples and the singles who make these posts online all the time. It's like, couple looking for the third of our dreams, or hey, I'm single looking for the couple of my dreams. And then it's like, when they say things like that, there is an impression that they give off, not all the time and not to everybody, because if somebody says I'm generalizing, yes, I am, but these exist. Let's talk about it. But it does feel kind of like there's actually a meme going out right now of, it's like, Doogie Howser and his husband, and like a blank space in between them, and they're like, this could be you. And it just seems like it's just very placeholdery. It's warm body filling. And so it's like, I'm looking for the couple of my dreams. This doesn't say anything about you, your intentions, the kind of person you are, what your values are. And I say the same for couples that are looking for a third, that just advertise it out there at face level. So it's very good to just kind of see, like, what your intentions are, what your goals are. I will say that when people get into a community mindset, any community at all, just, regardless about what the common denominator is, they do get a little gatekeepy sometimes. And so they do see some words that they do want to kind of shy away from. This could be their own personal values. It could just be the way conversations go amongst themselves and their friends. I'm going to put my hand down. And one of those is like when you say that you're polycurious and you're exploring. Well, a lot of people might say, well, I don't really want to be explored and I don't want to be tried.
Yeah.
So not to say that you shouldn't own, and you can say, you know what, this whole concept is new to me, but I am open to it. But I mean, that could be one of the things that, go ahead.
No, should I avoid saying that at all? Because I mean, it's kind of similar to, I've never been with a trans man, but I'm attracted to them. And when opportunities have come up and I say, I don't have experience with it, but I really want to, I want to try this. I want to be involved. I want to explore it. I want to try, they back off. And it's like, well, same with other things like fisting. Like if you don't have experience.
So you kind of come across it.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm sorry that that happens because I mean I think that you're just being perfectly honest, and I think that it really kind of speaks more to the marginalized communities in general. Because I'll say this as a ginger, I hate being fetishized. They're like, oh, I've never been with a ginger guy before. It's like I'm not going to do anything different than another guy would. Like I'm just not. So I think that that is not necessarily a you problem, but it is a problem that you've obviously have faced before. And so it's not really that you should deny that. You should just be aware of what the impressions are for some people. And then you can decide whether or not to alter that for those people, or you can say, well, you know, the people that feel that way maybe aren't for me. When you say, you know, that you just don't meet enough people at the bars and the clubs, I wouldn't slow that down for you at all, because if that's a social priority for you, then that's a good common denominator for you to like build something off of somebody. Be like, oh, hey, can I get you a drink? Oh, this bartender's amazing. And then boom, it's like it's an icebreaker. It's a good place to start and actually have those face-to-face conversations.
Thank you, Anthony. We have Daniel with us tonight. Daniel, hello.
When we are like being open on what we input in information on the apps. On my experience, I have always turned to the apps when I wanted to look for like dating or going out or meet people. And I did have found a lot of rejection through the apps to a point where I reduce, using certain apps and going towards to other ones because of how people react to what I'll put on my comments or on my profile, sorry, and the description of the profile. And I think it was Anthony who mentioned that it's sometimes important to put in that information out there, right? Like who you are or what is your intention. Was it you, I think? The intention that you are looking for. In my experience, when I have input my bio on there, sometimes I didn't mention that I was poly because I was kind of scared of how people react to that. And the reaction that I have gotten from some people that I match or that I have talked to when I tell them, hey, I'm poly, they kind of like back out, right? But I have learned that if I put it in there, if I am open and I say, this is who I am, this is what I'm looking for, or, try to put myself out there, then even though it reduces the pool or the pool of people that you might be able to date or see or meet, it's still, you're kind of like sifting and finding the appropriate people that you're gonna end up dating or seeing. It is difficult. I agree to find couples and date them because a lot of couples out there, not everyone, but a lot of couples out there are just looking for fun, right? So they're just looking for sex. I have gone through that experience as well. Not me looking for a couple specifically, but me being in a couple relationship looking for a third. Where me, I was looking for, someone to be into a relationship. My partner was looking just to have fun, and that was kind of like also something that you have to keep in mind, that sometimes those couples that they're looking for a third, they said that they're looking for a third, sometimes they also brings their own issues, they also bring their own difficulties, and that's something that you have to keep in consideration, that if you're trying to date a couple, it's possible that you're gonna bump into all these different problems as well, because everybody brings their own baggage. I personally think that or prefer to build up a relationship individually, even if that person is new to polyamory, even if that person is very experienced in polyamory or not, or maybe they're not even polyamorous, poly, right? Even if they're not poly, I still open to the opportunity and just to get to know the people, because you generate connections and you get to know people and you understand also, and you grow as person as well.
I honestly, like when I say, of course, and we've said it, I think three of us have already said it. Of course, when you have a online dating profile. It's all about how you're using, or what you're, wanting people to see. So like, I know that I'm attracted to trans men as well, right? So like on my profile, like I do say I'm just looking to hook up because my bandwidth on relationships is a little spent right now. But things happen. Sometimes you find someone you like and everybody else likes them too. But anyway, so like it's all about how I worded my profile and how I worded, like, I don't have a lot of experience with trans men. However, I really am sexually attracted to trans men. And sometimes saying it like that, it's a little bit better than saying it like in another way. Like I've seen I've seen so many people say so many vulgar things. It's like, oh, trans is the best. I mean, like I've seen that, and I was just like, was that on a profile? Like, it's like, okay, well, okay. But it's all about how you word something. Like, I mean, I know that when someone says to me, I really do love African American men, right? I'm like, okay, well, okay. I know, right? And then, but of course, when people say, I want a BB, I'm kind of like, okay, I'm blocking you.
Yeah, that's different. Really different. Yeah.
It's like I'm blocking you automatically.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I've had people find me again and say, why did you block me? God, it's not a bad thing. I'm like, well, the way that you're saying it to me comes off as a little disrespectful. So it's, of course, it's like, when someone says something endearing, sometimes it's like, I like chocolate. I'm like, yeah, me too. Like, Kit Kats and Reese's Pieces and all that other stuff. I totally do. And of course, it's like, oh, wait, no, you're calling me chocolate. I'll accept that because it's sweet. So, like, the thing is, it's all about how you word things and how it comes off as something or something else. It's like always about that.
I can wrap it up in just kind of like challenge you a little bit, Marvin, because when I met my first partner, Kirk, that is currently in LA, and we have a long distance relationship and we travel, I'd never done it before. And it started up with another friend of mine, and we started experiencing it as a throuple. And even though I had been non-monogamous in relationships before, I had not really involved my emotions into them. I had explored sexual friendships, beautiful sexual friendships. Um, and I kind of dove into it. And my first thing was, I'm going to learn as much as I can about this to kind of bring the best. If I'm going to give this a try, I'm going to give this a try. Ultimately, it didn't work out with another person, right? To this day, they are one of our best friends, one of my best friends. That's who I turn to for advice. But having that, you mentioned at the beginning of it, having that lack of experience that kind of keeps you from doing that. I would challenge you to kind of flip it on the other side, right? It's a really great opportunity for discovery when you find somebody that you can connect with and do that as well. And with him, we met on, AIDS Life Cycle. I met my second partner through through the key community and power dynamics, and a lot of the work that I do with Onyx Northwest, and that was there. And then I met my third partner, who was probably the greenest out of everybody, and it could be a position like yours, right? Who had zero experience with anything of it non-monogamy, and it's been a beautiful process. It was somebody who I looked at and I felt so connected to, and I felt not just chemistry, but I usually look for kindness in people's hearts. Somebody who's kind is going to be generous. Somebody who's kind is going to, put in the work to work through conflict. It was such a longer journey, has been such a longer journey than in my other two partnerships. But this person was of such value that I felt that I could and should and wanted to dedicate the time to maybe what you would say, kind of bringing them up to speed with regard to non-monogamy and how to do that ethically and how to be able to connect, right? So each one of my relationships was completely different. And it was one of those situations in which, just because this person didn't necessarily have the experience that I had with my other two partners already, didn't in that moment, keep me from wanting to explore that, right? And wanting to be able to give it a chance. And I think that that really, that was my middle partner, so to say, had a lot of experience with non-monogamy, right? So I think that keeping in mind that wherever you are now, there's definitely somebody out there, for anybody out there, there's probably will be willing to meet you halfway, right? It's just tough sometimes getting there. but it's out there.
I will say that I would not necessarily put so much emphasis on how much quote poly experience that you have, so much as how much relationship experience you have and how much relationship knowledge you have gotten, because a lot of the um, the rises and pitfalls that you'll have will really just be similar to any interpersonal relationship. They just happen to include, X amount of people as well. So, I mean, if you have a good understanding about, what a relationship with you presently look like, what a relationship in the future might look like, and things like that, then I think that as far as, dating couples for you, it might just be a matter of finding them. And then but I don't think you should necessarily worry too much about, that experience makes you qualified for a poly relationship. I mean, you could do your research like Sergio says, you educate and learn about what has gone on in the past. But like for the most part, any advice you're going to get about relationships comes from people's own relationships. So why not start with the advice you've gotten from your own? Right, so the second question we have from Marvin said, are there examples of polyamorous men who raise children together? I've never heard about them. I'm sure they exist. If so, what are the challenges and how have they navigated those? I am polycurious, so I also want to raise children someday. Is this an abnormal or rare curiosity/desire to want both? I would like to believe that it isn't.
I have children, Marvin, and I have raised them with my husband. We adopted them at a very young age. And the thing is, of course, we explain to them, children are like sponges, right? So they like literally absorb everything around them. They're just like little sponges. And so when you explain something to them at a young age, a lot of the time, since a lot of them have not been influenced by other parts of our society, meaning traditionalism and what it's supposed to look like, and how, the pressure of being a heteronormative world, blah, 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 blah. A lot of times they understand it. So when we explain to our daughter, and then our son, we explain to our daughter what polyamory is and, what it's like, she said, kind of like promptly, I don't think that's for me. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you can define your own relationship the way you want, or your own romantic relationship the way you want. Yeah, I don't think so. But, I'm just happy that you guys are happy. And it's like pretty much she was okay. Our son was okay too. He was like, yeah, I don't think so. But if y'all are happy, that's y'all. It's cool. Because what the one thing is that we didn't let that affect our children, right? We didn't say you have to be polyamorous because we're polyamorous. We said, no, make that judgment for yourself. And the thing is, for us, I think when we found Joey, our boyfriend of 2 years, my daughter sent me a message she sent a message on Facebook. She said, my dads really deserve you. They've been looking and I'm glad that they found you.
Cute.
So it's like, she supported us in our relationship, and that's fine. Sometimes you're going to get the kids not supporting you in that relationship kind of type too. So, it's a hit or miss, but also on top of that, yes, you can still raise children in a poly world, and you can still, a lot of the children will be monogamous. They're not going to want to do it polyamory. They're not going to want to do polyamory at all. However, that's their choice, right? So especially when we talk about certain other subjects like sexuality or sexual orientation and other things like that, it's like I wish I had that option to be able to say, oh yeah, you can be I wish I would have had that option when I was younger, like, someone telling me you can be who you are, and that's okay.
Was it a coming out story to your kids, to your own kids as a polyamorous person?
So,
Basically?
okay, so the son, yes, the daughter, no.
Interesting.
So
So you have to come out as a gay to your parents, and then you have to come out as a gay to your kids, and then you have to come out as a polyamory to your parents, and then to your kids. What the hell is that?
And
then they're like,
I mean,
it's okay, as long as you're happy, I accept you, Dad. You're good. I don't hate you.
well, my daughter kind of found out, like, she kind of, she came up to me and she said, "Were you just kissing Uncle Rudy?" And I'm like,
Ah,
I And I
Why
couldn't
did that
deny it because
sound?
we went behind a building, and so I didn't know she followed me. So
It wasn't like camouflage. It was another side of
well,
the
I mean, she
building.
wasn't supposed to follow me. We were at a restaurant. She wasn't supposed to
Oh,
follow me.
oh, I'm sorry. So you were leaving your child unattended, and then she caught you.
Oh, she was with friends. So shut up. She was with friends, and then she kind of called me, and I was like, crap. So then she kind of like, I had to, she's like, were you kissing Uncle Rudy? Are you getting a divorce? I'm like, okay, no. Uncle Rudy is
Wow.
a special friend. Yeah, she totally, I was like, and this is what, do you know what polyamory? I have to explain and define. And she was like, well, that makes sense. And I
So
said,
you can
does
kiss
it?
anybody, Dad. Oh, wow.
No, that's not what she said. No. She said, that makes sense. I said, why? And she said, because Uncle Andy and Uncle Rick, you guys hang out with them a lot.
And 55 other guys.
No, I
That's
do
you,
not.
Oleg.
I mean, Oleg, I'm sorry. Who's got
We
how
haven't.
many boyfriends did you have? Because
Yeah,
we never can keep up. We never can
yeah. He
tell how
lost
many.
count. He lost count. I don't think there's an integer
Yeah,
for
Right.
I'm start
the
saying
amount
that
of.
it's just a zero. Yeah, just stop
I
counting.
mean, you say it's zero, but we all kind of like,
We know
we all
better.
kind of know.
Cool.
But yeah, that's how I explained it to her. And my son was a lot easier because I said I'm explaining it to him faster. I don't want to get caught again.
I guess I want to give you no credit, but like I want to kind of go back to what you said about like kids getting it right. I don't about kids giving kids credit for like getting it or understanding it sometimes much more easier than adults just when it's explained to them very simply. Like I have a nibbling that lives in France, and nibbling is a it's a genderless term for the child of one of my siblings at this point, and um at this point Noah is identifying as trans mask. However, we've had a relationship over basically since they live in France. We've had a relationship with Noah through social media. I mean, that's pretty much it. We chat on Instagram, and that's been our relationship for the past couple of years. And I know that they've followed me as being like the queer person in the family. However, I got a message one day just saying, hey, I noticed that you said that on your profile that you say you're polyamorous, and you have multiple partners. I've seen you in pictures with these persons. Are these your partners? And it totally caught me off guard. And it started a really great conversation of acknowledgement, saying, you know what, thank you so much for asking. It was actually a really beautiful point of validation coming from a child. And my child, I mean, now, at the age of 16 now, so somebody who is definitely, um, aware of their surroundings and kind of different, in a different generation than myself. And it was, led to a really beautiful conversation of being able to say, you know what, yeah, like these are my partners, this is so and so, and picture and da da da. And it went off like I mean, I wish my coming out to parents would have gone off that easily. Like it was just something really, really simple, and that doesn't have a lot of questioning in their mind, right? And now it's one of those situations that whenever we chat, like my nibbling Noah acknowledges each one of my partners, like how's Kirk, how's Christopher, how's Jacob, da da da. What have you guys been up to? And have you seen them? Have you guys been able to connect and all this kind of stuff? And it's really, really beautiful. Like uh, it's a whole other aspect of having younger generations, especially that you may be related to in one way or another, just be able to also validate that part of my polyamory that like I don't necessarily get from everybody else around me.
All right, we have about 10 minutes left. If anybody has a question. Also, I would like to know if there is any resources or events that we can recommend to our audience, for polyamory people, locally, globally, online, in person, anything you want to suggest?
Well, I heard recently about Birds of a Feather matchmaking service by Victoria Joseph and her husband in the greater Chicago area.
I want to go to Chicago. Yeah, I want to explore. Oof.
Chicago is a really, really, really beautiful city, and especially during the summer.
It is very nice.
And if you want to go, Oleg, I would definitely recommend that you go during market days. It's just happening right now. Market days in Chicago. I think that was I was a little baby. That was my first introduction to a dungeon, I think.
I stopped seeing guys.
We all know that, but Oleg is so inexperienced in all of that.
Oh my God.
I have too much experience. I stopped seeing guys.
You have too much experience, so you stop seeing guys.
Like, is it like a visual disorder?
I
Yeah, I put some
Like you've
glass.
you've literally been fucked blind.
wow. Rose-colored sunglasses. Interesting.
I bet everything looks great. That's why everything looks great to Oleg.
No, yeah, so resources. Well, we're here. I think we're a good resource.
Wait, when you say for poly
Justin,
people,
Justin
for
is a
poly
good
people to do
resource.
what?
Right.
Wait, when you say resources for poly people to do what?
I mean,
Wait.
anything, events, conventions, speed datings, apps, websites, books, platforms, communities,
Well, we are
private sessions.
we
Why
are
not?
going to have our book review
Don't
episode coming
make me get that book out. Jesus.
Oh, all right.
And I'm
Well,
We do have a big poly event, kind of poly non-monogamous event coming up in San Francisco. It's called Folsom Street Fair. It happens in happens the last weekend of September. There's a lot of non-monogamy there, I think, and like-minded
There's a
people.
lot of everything there.
Non-monogamy workshop. That's how you call it.
I would definitely recommend you come and check it out, Oleg.
Oh my God.
I think that the resources are ourselves whenever we are, wherever we are, whether it's at work or whatever we are doing, something.
Exactly.
When we talk to people, it is funny because now you said, Sergio, about Folsom. I'm gonna have my booth over there in Folsom. So if people come in, I'll tell them about polyamory as a resource.
You're gonna have a booth?
Yeah, I had one in Dory too. I was selling my paintings in there.
Okay, well, definitely send me the info. I'll come and check it out, Daniel, for sure.
Oh wait. So
Justin, are you coming?
I'm looking for the date. Folsom's on the 24th?
September 29th.
29th. Okay.
Right after my birthday.
Damn. Okay, so we're gonna be
Daniel, I'm gonna be hosting a right in front of Powerhouse on the street. We're gonna be hosting, I call it the watering hole. And it's a shaded area. It's a shaded area. We provide beverages, seating, and shade for anybody that is of color that needs a moment to step away, that might be also in an unsafe situation or might be being fetishized, kind of create a safe space for people of color in the middle of the fair. So you'll see me at the Onyx watering hole.
I might be able to make it.
I don't know where my booth is going to be, but for Dory, I was actually in Dory Street.
But listen, Oleg, as I've mentioned before, sometimes in major cities like San Francisco, because non-monogamy is a wider practice of the community, of the gay community in general, there isn't necessarily a lot of focused kind of events or meetups specifically for polyamorous people that are gay. I think you do see that a little bit more within the pan and heterosexual communities in San Francisco. And I must confess that there's not something that I am fully embedded in to be able to provide those resources. I will be following up with Victoria though, and reaching out for like a list of some of the events and places that she's been attending with her husband, and also doing a little bit more research around that creative website that she was mentioning. And then I'll share that with the group, and we can maybe create kind of like an ongoing list of resources for events that might be able to be helpful for people that join us. So yeah, I'll keep that in mind as we go from there, but nothing aside from Folsom Street Fair to report from San Francisco.
And you know what you just said is actually a question that I was going to bring up later. And I'd like to do just like a solid episode on it with this group, because we brought it up in another discussion as well. Because like I said, Oleg believes that everybody should have as much representation as possible, and I agree with that. But then it comes to a question on exactly the kind of representation. So I pose it to the council for next time. I want you to think about this. Is polyamory a community or a shared interest? And how is it best represented amongst those categories?
All right. Well, guys, if you still with us here, if you're watching us on YouTube, please like this video, subscribe to this channel. You can leave your comments below. You can join us for the next conversation. We're gonna put the link for you to register in the description under this video. You can share this video with your friends, and yeah, you can submit your questions. We will be happy to discuss. We're gonna and talk about them for the next time. And I want to say thank you to everybody who joined us tonight on this episode. You can watch replay on YouTube.
Yes. So thank you for answering.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you in the next episode. Subscribe to our channel, and bye-bye.